Here we're going to look specifically at truth tables and what those mean and how they work. Truth tables are a way for you to be able to determine the truth value of a compound statement. We use T or F, T for truth, F for false, and we evaluate each statement. So what do I mean by that? Let's say that we want to make a truth table to see what it looks like for P and Q. Now the way that works is we have to set up a truth table for P, we set one up for Q, and then we set one up for the compound statement. So here we have P, and the way you set it up is we know that your compound statement P will be either true or it'll be false. Now that's the same thing for Q. Q is either going to be true or it's going to be false. So the way we set it up is that your first column is always going to have all its trues together and all its falses together. Your second column is going to have them intermixing. And then we have to look at the AND. So we have, if P is true and Q is true, then P and Q has to be true. However, if P is true and Q is false, then the compound is false. If P is false and Q is true, then the compound is false. If P is false and Q is false, then the compound is false. Okay? So what that kind of does is it sets us up for what our different definitions are. So again, like before, in learning about compound statements, we know that there are three types: conjunction, disjunction, and conditional. Conjunction uses the word and. These statements are true if both pieces are true. Otherwise, if one of the pieces is false, then the compound is false. For a disjunction, these statements are true unless both pieces are false. So in other words, when we're talking about an or statement only needs one of the statements to be true. For a conditional, it says that these statements are false if the first statement is true and the second statement is false. And so what that means is that you cannot, for a conditional, start out with a true statement and end in a false statement. Okay? So what we're going to look at here is a bunch of different examples on what it means to set up truth tables. Now the last one that we have to keep in mind is a negation. A negation means to use the opposite value of what you saw in your table column. Okay, so again we'll use our negation. So here we have complete the truth table and identify if any are tautology. In other words, if any of the conditionals, so the last column right here, has all trues. Okay, so that's what we're looking at. So in this first one, here we have the statement, not W or not Z. So here, what we have to do is we have to put it all together. So we start with the given. We're given W and Z. We have to fill the rest in. So here we have not W means the opposite. So if my W starts true, true, false, false, then the opposite is going to be false, false, true, true. Same for Z. If I have true, false, then the opposite here becomes false, true, false, true. Remember, the OR statement says that you are true unless both pieces are false. So in this case, we have to look at not W, and not Z. So I have false, false is going to give me a false. I have a false, then a true, so my conclusion's true. I have a true, then a false, so I have a true, and then I have a true and true, which is true. And that's all you're asked to do when putting together your truth table. Let's look at another one. So here I have if C, then not D. So the first thing I'm given is C and D. I have to figure out the rest, so I need not D so I can do my compound. Not D is going to say false, true, false, true. So then we have to have if, then, if C, then not D. And if we're with our if-then statements, remember the only time it's false is if you start out with a true and end in a false. So if we look at this first one, I'm going to start out true, but I'm going to end false. So this is false. I'm going to start out true, I'm going to end true, so I have true. I'm going to start out false and end false, which is true. I'm going to start out false and end true, which is true. Alright, let's look at another one here. Here I have the parentheses A and B or not C. So I've given A, B, and C, and so you can see how this expands. C, A, all of my trues are together, all my falses are together. For B, we have the opposite, but notice it's in pairs. So true, true, false, false, true, true, false, false. And then C gets down to every other one. Okay, so that's kind of how it works. And here we have to do not C. So we're going to take all of our C columns and essentially switch them. So this becomes false, true, false, true, false, true, false, true. We then have to look at A and B. So we're looking at these first two columns here. And remember, the definition of AND says that both pieces must be true, otherwise you're false. So we have A and B starts with true. Then the second A and B is true. Then I have true, then false. So we have a false and a false, false the rest of the way down. Because if you notice, the rest of them, I don't have two trues. Now the last one says I have to take my parentheses. So we're going to look at this column here, and I'm going to use or, not C. So remember, the or statement says only one of the statements has to be true for the conclusion to be true. Unless both are false, then the conclusion is false. So here I have false, true, so that gives me true. The next one is true, true, so I have true. Here I have a false, false, so that's a false. Then I have a true, false. I have a false, false, a true, false, a false, false, and a true, false. Alright, let's do another one. Here I have M and N or not N. So in this case, again, we need to look at the not N piece. So here, we're going to take our N and we're going to flip it. So I'm going to have false, true, false, true. I need to do N and M, so that's looking at these first two columns here. And so we're going to end up with true, false, false, false. And then I need to look at the two columns I created. So we're going to start with the M and N, and we're going to say or not N and see what happens there. And in this case, we get true, true, false, and true. Alright, let's look at one more example here. So here I have A and not B, or if A, then B. So notice I have a lot of pieces in my table to fill out. So first place we need to start with is not B. So here this is going to become false, true, false, true. Then I have A and not B. So I'm going to look at A and the not B. And in this case we're going to have false, true, false, false. Now I need to look at my if A then B statement. So again, that one is going to be false if and only if you start out true and end false. So here we're going to have true, false, true, true. So now I have my first part here, so A and not B, or A then B. So we're going to look at these two, and we're using the or. So this first one is going to be true, 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 true. Since all of them are true, then we would also call this one tautology. And that's because this column here shows all truths. Now the other way that we can look at these is we can be given two statements, and then we can use each of the compound statements given and determine which of them are true. In other words, which of them might apply. So we have the dinner is ready and the family gathers at the table. So we need to determine the following compound statements would also be true. So here the first one says the dinner is not ready or the family gathers at the table. So based on the sentence we've been given, this one would be false. The second one says the dinner is ready or the family does not gather at the table. And again, using these two sentences in the same way, we would have to say that this is false. Here we have the dinner is not ready or the family does not gather at the table. We would consider this one to be false. And the last one says the dinner is ready or the family gathers at the table. This would be true. So that is everything that you would need to know to be able to get started in working with truth tables to answer compound statements. So if you have any questions, please feel free to let me know. Otherwise, I do hope you enjoyed this video, and I look forward to chatting with you next time.